What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel. He's Andrew Destin. I'm Noah Hiles. It's time for another mailbag. Andrew, we're coming to you, or we should probably tell these people, we're coming to them from an office in the Pirates front offices here. It's a rain delay right now, so we figured we'd knock this out early. But an interesting week of Pirates baseball so far. We're really in the thick, the grind of spring training. Before we answer questions, I mean, just your immediate takeaways on the team so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear, right, that this team is going to be dependent on its pitching, right? We've learned that much through the players that they've acquired, guys like Andrew Heaney that they've signed over the offseason, the guys that are currently here and were expected to be here, and the performances already. We know how important pitching is going to be. We know how important the bullpen is going to be. On the hitting side, there have been some good signs, some good developments, like Brian Hayes looking solid, but I think everything that we've written and we've been led to believe is that pitching is going to, be what provides this team a path to contention. And we've kind of seen evidence of that so far.
I totally agree. I think we've seen a lot of the positives you'd hope to see with some of these pitchers too. I mean, some guys have got beaten up a little bit for the most part, though. The guys that we know are going to be on this major league opening day roster have looked pretty good.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
All right, so it's time to answer some questions. Also, our show is brought to you by Greenwalt Roofing. Big thanks to them. We'll hear more from them in a bit. We'll start off. AJ has a question. He said the Pirates have extended a key piece each of their last 3 springs. So would they be likely? Who would be the likely candidates this year? Any rumblings? It's not like they break the bank in free agency. Seems like this might be the last chance to buy. Sort of low on Cruz. Any chance on Skeens? I'll let you start, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, we're not hearing anything,
right,
at least on either of these sides, with guys like Mitch Keller and Brian Reynolds, who'd kind of heard rumblings beforehand. Where my mind kind of goes to is that you already have Mitch Keller locked up. You have Brian Reynolds locked up. You have Brian Hayes locked up. I'm not saying that, the Pirates are necessarily some poor franchise. That's not what I'm getting at. It's more just the idea that you already have 3 guys locked up to long-term contracts. I have to wonder how many more are they going to be willing to sign on to those kinds of deals? And maybe that means somebody becomes expendable first. But until we get to a place where, hey, the Pirates are willing and demonstrating that they're going to be a $200 million payroll team or $150 million, I just don't see an avenue where they're going to extend somebody like a Cruz or a Paul Skeens. Given the current, financial state of baseball.
Yeah, I think that we're in some flux right now where there are guys that they potentially could extend later on down the road, but they need to see more from them. And then there's also guys that I think they're just not going to be able to extend. Like, I think Skeens, quite frankly, is out of their price range. And it kind of was from the moment he made his big league debut. Cruz probably falling closer to that category as well. And then there's other guys who I think it's possible that Jared Jones gets an extension one day. Sure. I don't see that happening right now, though. I mean, if Jack Sawinski does well, and again, that's a long way down the road. A lot would have to go right. But guys, who are young and have those years of control, but they still have to prove themselves, prove that they can be a long-term value before those conversations really even begin to seriously take place. So right now, I don't see anybody in that immediate, obvious category.
No, not particular on my end either.
All right, so we move forward now. Sam wants to know, do we think that Matt Gorski will be on the opening day roster? He says he certainly has much needed power at first base and that he deserves a shot. I'll start with this one. I don't think he will be. I think he will be a major league player at some point this year. I think he will make it to the big leagues at some point. But at first base, I don't know. I mean, I think if he was a left-handed hitter, he'd have a better shot. I think they're kind of looking for that left-handed bat. And yeah, I mean, he's had a couple of really good games, but as I've kind of detailed before, a lot of his success has come against minor league pitching.
Right.
He did hit the 1 home run. I forget the guy that it was specifically off of. It was the second or the 3rd home run he's hit this spring. It was the second game he did it against the Orioles. It was against a proven major league veteran, but most of his other success has come in the late innings against minor league arms. I want to see him get opportunities. I want to see him get a start and play against big league starters, play against big league high leverage arms and see what he can do with the bat there. Until we do that, Andrew, I don't think it's realistic to expect him to make the big league roster.
No, it's not. And there's so many factors that are outside of his control, right? I mean, the guy's not on the 40-man roster right now. That's a really serious factor that I think we need to take in consideration, is that of the 40 guys that are on that 40-man roster, they pretty much think highly of at least 35, 36 of those. And the guys rounding out the roster, it's bullpen arms, or, it's a reserve outfielder or somebody like that. I just don't see a way that Matt Gorski, as of right now, is the way the roster is put together, that he would be deemed a guy that, you're willing to part ways with. I'll throw a name out there, Liover Peguero or Sung Chae Chang or somebody like that. Like, yes, maybe these guys aren't the bona fide prospects that they could have been or never really were, but I just don't see a way that either of those guys gets pushed to the curb to make room for a Matt Gorski.
Next question comes from John. He's asking us to look in our crystal ball and see the future for Hwan, Jason DeLay, and Liover Peguero.
Yeah, I think you got to order it Peguero, then Bay, then DeLay in terms of potential or future in Pittsburgh. And that's not a slight on Jason DeLay. It's just circumstance for him. There's
a lot of guys ahead of him.
Yeah, there's 3 other catchers, all of whom, based on the Pirates' actions, they seem to think higher of. And that's not a slight on DeLay. He very well could be a solid major league backup for a number of years. But Peguero is an interesting case because he was at one period of time one of the top position player prospects in the organization. And then Hwan, that speed, that athleticism, there aren't many guys in the franchise who run like that, who can play center field like that as they continue to get more reps underneath their belt. So I think Peguero is the guy that's interesting just because, hey, there aren't many shortstops.
There's not any There's not a real true shortstop in this organization, in the whole org.
No,
really.
So that's why, to me, I think just by nature of, hey, you can play shortstop. That's why he might have a future here.
Yeah, I think he's got the most to prove still.
Oh, totally.
Where I feel like we know what Jason DeLay is, and there's value in a player like him. It's just potentially not on this team just because there's 2 guys that were very high-ranking prospects ahead of him, and then Joey Bart, who's the starter at that position. And then you look at Bay. I mean, the game has looked good in AAA, but it's yet to translate. And now I just look at the additions they made last deadline, bringing in Cook, bringing in Nick York, and even other moves that they made this offseason. I don't think Adam Frazier's here if they feel comfortable with Hwan being a major league utility infielder. I don't think Emmanuel Valdez would have been acquired at that. And if he's just an outfielder at this point, then I mean, he's not going to be your everyday center fielder. He's not going to take Brian Reynolds' job. And I would think that as a left-handed bat, you'd probably give preference to Sawinski or even Palacios ahead of him. So I don't know where his fit is. The athleticism obviously is something that allows him to stand out, but it's just a tough path where Peguero has the path.
Yeah.
I mean, the everyday shortstop on this team is a free agent at the end of the year. Peguero also, this is his final option year.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity for Peguero 2025 to show that he can be their guy of the future if he can figure out how to get the bat to play. Now, last year was his first full year in AAA. He still is very young.
Kid's 23.
Yeah, he's 23 years old, but it's a question of can he give them enough confidence that he can be a productive hitter? Because we're seeing in baseball now that having a true defensive shortstop is not as valued as it once was. I mean, teams like to have a great defender at that spot, but you don't see a lot of teams with an everyday, this is my shortstop, this is a guy who's a great defender. They're just kind of picking someone who can field the position fine, but give you good offense there. And he's got to be able to show that.
Yeah, and I think that's capable. That's amply there. I mean, the defense improved last year. Who's to say that the offense couldn't as well?
Quick break here so we can hear from our sponsor, Greenewalt Roofing.
Hey, Pittsburgh. When you think of great roofs, you think Greenewalt Roofing Company. With over 20 years experience, Greenewalt knows your roof is your home's first line of defense from rain, wind, snow, and ice. That's why Greenewalt Roofing's standard for perfection is so important. You can trust that their team of experienced installers will treat your property like it's their own. When it comes to roof replacements, Greenewalt Roofing is Pittsburgh's only choice. Visit greenewaltroofing.com today or call 412-314-8882 to schedule your free estimate. PA contractor number 36262.
Big thanks to them. We'll get back to the questions now. JP wants to know if we think the new hitting coach will focus more on small ball this year. We know there's not much power hitting in the lineup, so is generating offense in other ways a priority? I don't think it'll be like a team-wide approach.
No.
Nor should it. There shouldn't be a team-wide approach for any specific style of hitting. It should be maximizing guys' individual talents. That was the whole qualm of the last hitting coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're going to do that, then maybe there will be a little bit. Like I look at the bottom third of this lineup, and guys like IKF, like there is a value in playing small ball a little bit. Even
Totally.
with Hayes, even with Gonzalez, guys who can make contact and just move guys over and simplify the game. That's, I think, a good strategy to go by. It's hard to tell right now in spring training because guys are working on things. They're not necessarily trying to just go out there and win and by any means necessary. But I think if they truly do coach to the individual strengths of guys on the roster, then there is a chance we'll see a little bit more small ball. Now, it's not going to be like 1990s where Jay Bell's coming up and bunting 2-3 times a game. That just doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
But I think we could see it more often than most teams show it now.
Yeah, I think, and maybe the biggest key takeaway is less so about the hitting coach as it is more so conversations with Tarek Brock, the first base coach of the Pirates, is maybe they just run more. I think maybe that's, if there's ever a tangible thing that we'll be able to track this year, they were one of the most efficient base running teams in baseball last year, and I think kind of, hit themselves and said, hey, we could have been a little bit more aggressive there. We could have been an even better base running team. But on the hitting side, I'm not expecting anything out of the norm.
Johan wants to know, in the spirit of Daniel Vogelbach, if you could choose one former Pirate to be hired as a roaming instructor for the organization, who would it be? I love this question.
Yeah, I think we both had great answers to this. I'm very excited for yours, but for me, I say Jason Kendall.
Okay.
I think it would be interesting because Kendall, a guy who arguably is the best catcher in franchise history, up there with guys like Manny Sanguillen. What I think about Kendall, if he could come by in some kind of a capacity, is that right now you have 3 catchers within the franchise that you think pretty darn highly of, and Joey Bart, Endy Rodriguez, and Henry Davis. Now, I get it. Kendall's best attribute as a catcher was on the hitting side, right? He wasn't a glove-first catcher by any stretch, but he's still caught in the big leagues for close to 2 decades.
Yeah.
That's a guy who's a wealth of knowledge, who bounced around the league, still is connected to the game, has been around it his whole life. I would be very intrigued to see what those kind of conversations would look like if he was able to be brought in some kind of capacity to work with the young catchers.
Yeah, my answer would be Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
One, he's the greatest hitter of my lifetime. I know there are arguments against that, but
no, he is.
I don't want to hear them. I think he's the best. As someone who turns 30 in a week or so, Barry Bonds is the best hitter that's been playing baseball since I've been on this earth. And the fact that he has a connection to the org, the fact that he has been a major league hitting coach before, giving him a lesser role where he can just, bounce between the minors and the majors, work on specific projects with guys, give individual instruction rather than worrying about a whole team, I think could be valuable. And I also just think it would be cool to see Barry back in Pittsburgh.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
I'll give one more answer too. Not for this season, but moving forward, whenever Andrew McCutchen decides his playing days are done.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to see this type of role for him.
He's the kind of guy who, when you see in basketball, he gets the gym keys.
Yes.
That's Andrew McCutchen. When he calls it quits, you've got keys to PNC Park. Come by anytime.
First of our 2 YouTube exclusive questions. You can read all of our mailbags at post-gazette.com, but you only get these 2 answers here. Gus wants to know, do either of us see Justin Lawrence making the big league roster out of camp?
Man, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's really early to tell. We just met him today.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I think he's a really interesting guy, and spring is... You never put too much stock in spring training results, but if there was ever a time or a guy to do that with, it's somebody who's going from pitching in the Mile High City to pitching at sea level.
Yep.
That's not just a cliche. It's for real. It's that the stuff doesn't move as much. Guys are more fastball dependent because the breaking balls aren't going to break as much. More fastball changeup guys. His calling card is the sweeper. It can be pretty darn effective. We've seen how effective sweepers have been for a lot of Pirates pitchers. So it's more going to be a numbers game, I feel like. They brought him in here because they could and because they're putting Johan Oviedo on the 60-day IL, and they had some room to work with. He's an interesting guy. The Rockies parted ways with him. He was really good in 23. I think he could make the team. I just genuinely don't know right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps that he's on the 40-man.
Yeah.
It gives him an edge over some other guys that are fighting for a bullpen spot right now. He's had one good major league season. His splits are favorable away from cores, as is the case for pretty much every other pitcher.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, he's kind of behind in the sense where the Pirates have got a much better look at every other guy competing for the jobs that he's competing for right now. You know, he's the new guy. He's got to get acclimated with the pitching group, got to get acclimated with the catchers, and he's got to have good results quick if he's gonna stick here. So, final question comes from Malls, and he wants to know. He said Malls took the over on 76.5 wins for the Pirates this year. Should he double down or not? Well, we're not going to tell you how to spend your money or how to gamble, especially on baseball. We're definitely not allowed to do that. Nope. But I think it is a interesting question when you look at the win total number that he just listed. It's basically asking, is this team going to win more than 76 games this year? And that's something that's the number they've been at the last 2 seasons, 76. So what do you think, Andrew, based off of what you've seen so far? We're almost a week into March. Is this a team that's better than the last 2?
Yeah, I think it is. And that might just be as simple as you have a full season of Paul Skeens versus 23 starts. It really might just be that simple. And instead of being a 76-win team, they're a 78-win team or a 79-win team. I don't know the exact number. I think they'll be better than last year. I think the bullpen will be better. I think the offense will be a little bit better. I think the fielding will be better. How much that adds up to in terms of more wins, I'm not sure it's going to be tangible enough for this to be a playoff team. But at the very least, I think they'll be improved from last year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one, like you just said, having Paul for 30 starts as opposed to 20-something is a difference maker. That's more winnable ball games. You're probably going to have more Jared Jones this year too. Mitch Keller, another year of him. I think the pitching, the floor of the pitching staff is much higher than what it was last year. I don't think we'll ever see it get as bad as it got in August of last season. The offense is still a huge question mark. And like you pointed out, I think the fielding is going to be a lot better. So with those, yeah, I think they'll be better than a 76-win team. Don't know if it'll be a 82-win team. Don't think necessarily right now that it'll be a playoff team, but it'll be at least slightly better than years past. So he's Andrew Destin on Noah Hiles. Follow our work at post-gazette.com and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already at PG Pirates. We do these mailbags every Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow for more Pirates content.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.